A few weeks ago in my stories, I made a hot pepper mustard, and I said I was not going to show you the recipe right now just because didn't have time maybe to do it. Okay. So I got inundated with all of you wanting the recipe, and it is delicious. It's extremely odd. This is a really weird thing that we can. We love it. We put it on everything, whether it's pizza with nachos, chips and salsa, Chinese food, Mexican food, anything. We just kind of love it with everything. So to start, it takes 6 cups of hot peppers. It's hot pepper mustard. You can kind of gauge this. If you don't like extremely hot ones, what I do is like to use usually hot banana peppers. If you want to use sweet banana peppers, obviously there really won't be much spice. So you can gauge it like that. Also, if you don't want it as spicy, take out the pith and the seeds. That's where a lot of spice is. I want this spicy, so I'm leaving those in there. I'm using hot banana peppers, and again, I'm using that because you'll see the color goes best. You could use any pepper ground up for this. I like this. For control, I'm throwing in 3 super hot chilies. I like it spicy. I like my tongue to be like, It's actually not that spicy, honestly, but depending on your spice level, don't add in the chilies yet too. Instead of grinding it with a grinder, as a lot of people would, I use a food processor. My food processor is used during these summer months so much for canning. So I just throw them in there. As you can see, I chop them into small pieces. It just helps the food processor grind them up a little bit more evenly. And I do have gloves on because I've learned a lesson. I don't always do it, and when I don't, I usually end up touching my eye, or it's on my hands all night and they're beet red. I've been there. I think pulsing it helps pull it down more evenly. And I do like I like to use, color-wise, all banana peppers. I like that yellowy color. And then I like to just add in like a few red, a few orange. Oh, and guys, I'm getting the hit of the spice. Now I'm gonna measure these. It takes 6 cups. 6 cups. And if you're about to say, where is the recipe for this? Look right below the video in the description there. There's a recipe. All there for you, all of it. I'm gonna grind up some more. I'm gonna fill this up to 6 cups, and we're just gonna throw it all together. As you can see, I like them ground or chopped nice and fine. Back in the day, people would do this with those grinders that would attach to your counter like a kitchen cabinet, and then you would turn it with different blades that would go on it. So much easy. We have it so easy now with these food processors, you guys. Back in the day, I don't really remember, but a couple things we do actually use that grinder for still. Okay, I have in here 6 cups. I don't know how that worked perfectly, but I literally did just enough peppers for 6 cups. I'm gonna take off my gloves and dump all the 6 cups right into a heavy-bottomed kettle. Why do I say heavy-bottomed? If it's a really thin kettle, this will stick possibly, especially when we thicken it. So you want it to be a heavy-bottomed kettle because things don't stick near as well, and it cooks a lot more evenly and heats up evenly. So I have vinegar. I'm just gonna put it into here to slosh out some of those peppers. Otherwise, if I wouldn't have taken off my gloves, I would have done it. And now there's a really weird ingredient. Prepared mustard. You know, I think one of the reasons I didn't want to give this recipe out is because it's weird. And I have this thing with being like, oh, I don't want people to be like, ew, what is it? I don't really care. I'm gonna give it to you because it's so good. And the very few of you that really love it and make it, you will be hooked for life. And that's all that matters. Because really, my friends that have all tried this, they love it. And I wouldn't say I have the friends that usually would. I'm putting in, I saved a little bit of vinegar, as you can see. I put it in here because that's just a good way to clean these out. Otherwise, there is so much in there that you can't get out. So I'm shaking it around. It's like a maraca, a canner's maraca. And then I'm just gonna dump all that right into there. Look at all that extra mustard. See, that is important. You need to do that. And then that little bit I didn't do. I'm just gonna add right to it. So originally, this recipe, guess what? Had 6 cups of sugar. I know, old recipes, yeah, in general. So I use a 1/2 cup of like a monk fruit sugar, which you can buy at a store. It's like not really a sugar substitute. Monk fruit is a natural occurring sugar and they make it into a granular. Yeah, so we went from 6 cups. I don't do that. And then, of course, some salt. I always use canning salt when I'm canning because recipes are usually written depending on the type of salt. If it says kosher salt, use kosher. If it says canning salt, use canning because it's thinner grained. It's a lot smaller of a grain, so it's a different amount of salt if you use different types. This mixture now goes to the stove, and we're gonna bring it to a boil, and then we're just gonna let it cook for a few minutes just to make sure everything's kind of cooking together, and then we're gonna do an odd thing where we're gonna thicken it. Stay with me. This has come to a boil, and you want to make sure, instead of it just boiling around the edges, that you've stirred it and it's continuing to boil. So that means a kind of a rolling boil or a low rolling boil. You just want to make sure that it's actually boiling throughout. So while that is cooking still a little bit, we're going to get ready kind of the different part of this, which is the thickener. You have to thicken it. So it's almost like this more, it still pours, but it's just a thicker consistency. And to do that, it's just cornstarch and water. I think it's really odd, and I think a lot of you will think it's really odd, but when you're done, you'll understand, and you'll get why it is better when it's a little bit thick. You want it to have that slight thickness to it. So we're gonna bring this over here, and as you can see, this is really cooking. It's really boiling throughout. I'm gonna actually turn it off for a second because you don't usually like to add cornstarch to something that is so boiling hard. I have this ready to go. I just did that, and now we're gonna slowly start putting it in. Just stir it as you put it in to make sure it's evenly going in. And it's instantly, like already it's thicker. You can kind of just see, like, look at that, thicker. It's really bizarre how quickly it happens, but you definitely want to keep stirring it and making sure that's mixed evenly throughout, and it's not just one little spot that got thicker, because sometimes that can happen, especially when something's so hot. And I do admit, it becomes an intuitive thing, which all canning is, but you kind of get to a point where you know after making it a few times how thick you like it, so maybe you're not going to add the whole thing. That's totally fine. Or the first time I would always say, add what the recipe says, and figure it out from there. Just a little bit more, and I actually do think I'm gonna add about all this. We're gonna turn the heat back on low. I just want it to make sure, you wanna have it come back up to a boil, because that makes sure that all of the cornstarch is gonna be activated. Otherwise, you could have like a raw cornstarch taste in there, and it wouldn't all thicken properly. So we're gonna make sure, and be careful, at this point when it bubbles, it'll be a thicker bubble, which it could splatter out and it would burn you. So be careful, but you can see already how that beautiful thickness. I actually really like that. I'm gonna add the rest of this. And once it has boiled throughout, you're good to go. You don't wanna overcook the cornstarch, you don't wanna overwork it. You just want it to be thick, which it is. Bubbled throughout, which it did. We're gonna turn it off. You can see my water bath is ready. I was getting it ready while this was cooking. That's hot. Definitely use some hot pads. We're gonna bring it over here. And I'm just gonna actually set a hot pad under it to be safe. I don't know. Quartz, I think what? It's supposed to be like indestructible. I get so scared about that because I'm not planning on ever getting different countertops that I'm gonna do everything I can. So at this point, you're just gonna start filling jars. You can see it got thicker. I love that. It smells like it should. It has a slight mustard. I know it sounds really bizarre, but it's one of those things that, like, once you have it, I find it addictive, and you're gonna use it on so many different items. So I'm gonna fill the rest of these jars, and then we'll come back, clean them up, put the lids on, process. I have it all full. You know, I still think that one needs just a little bit in it. I am someone that is really picky. I like my jars to be like all the same level of fullness. They should have about a ½ inch of headspace at the top. Remember, headspace is important. Oh, it got hot, you guys, it's good. You always wanna wipe off the top with some hot water and a clean cloth, because any contaminants that get up there could impede on how it seals, and that's not good. You don't wanna go to all this work, but honestly, look how easy this was, and not have it seal. So go through all these steps, clean it off, Make sure there's nothing on those rims. You're gonna be glad you did. And yes, every so often I have something not seal and you think you did everything, why is it not? And it just teaches you that not everything's perfect. But hey, if you don't have one seal, just remember, throw it in the fridge, use it within, you know, the normal time frame, a few weeks in the fridge, and it will be fine. It just won't be shelf stable. I'm putting these lids on. If I wouldn't drop them all. Okay, lids, they're still clean, I promise. Put them on, and now we're just gonna fit them with the rings. The rings, I always say what? Fingertip tight. It just means don't overwork it. Don't make them so tight that they buckle. That can happen. I'm gonna bring them over and put them right into my prepared hot water bath. It is boiling, which is what you want. We're gonna bring them all over with a jar lifter because it's hot down in there. So don't think you can do it without a jar lifter. Safety first. And of course, always have your water bath fitted with a ring, something in the bottom that is gonna bring them up. If you buy a water bath canner, it will have something in it, a rack that will raise them up. You just never want them to touch the bottom of the canner. Make sure they're covered by water, which as you put them in, it will displace water over top. And then these process for 25 minutes. When something is thicker, it processes longer. So the thicker it is, the longer. So these are gonna process 25 minutes, adjust for altitude for where you live, and we're good to go. This has processed. I'm turning it off. It is extremely steamy in there. It's like a good facial when you're done. Except in the summer, it's always hot and sticky, so it's not. I just always slightly tip them just to get that excess water off the top. Most of it will evaporate, but I just like to help it along. And I always put them onto a baking sheet lined with a rack, mostly because I think they cool better that way. And also just when I'm filling them, it catches any of the drips, but also any of this water, it just drips right into there too. So I just find that works really well. And for those that know me best, this is definitely something that just stays in my oven kind of all the time during the summer. So it's just ready. I'm one of those people that I put things in my oven. I know I shouldn't, but I do. And then yeah, sometimes I forget and I turn the oven on. So these now just need to sit 12 hours at least, overnight, cool down completely. Make sure everything, don't touch them now. Do not touch them. Don't sit there and do that because as you can see, they're still not sealed, but they're drawing in, which means now as they come down, they're gonna push out the extra air in there and seal, but you don't wanna seal them yourself. No good. I never trust that kind of seal. So let them seal on their own. You're gonna hear a ping, and then you're gonna know they're done. Then you can take the rings off, put them in a dark place. They'll keep for at least a year. I'm like, at minimum a year. When you open them, put them in the fridge, of course, like anything you would buy. That is hot pepper mustard. It's weird, it's really odd, it's delicious, and it's addicting. You're gonna love it. Share it around, tell the world about hot pepper mustard, because I think a lot of problems can be solved with hot pepper mustard. If nothing else, it could just like make some people pass out, so that's worth it. Okay, I'm gonna go can something else, but I hope you like it. Let me know. Don't let me know if you don't like it. I don't need to know, because I'm still making it.